Now that we know some flowers to pick and some flowers not to pick, it's time to learn to preserve them. Let's go. Alright, we're going to begin by setting up a space to work. I'm using a mat because that's what I had on hand, but you can use really anything. You can even do this inside. We're going to go ahead and put down a little bowl or glass, whatever you have. Some needles for this. There's going to be multiple different ways of doing this, so you won't need all of these materials. I'm using a knife for cutting the thread, but you can use scissors or whatever you have on hand. And if you have one, a basket would be great. Now let's go gather some of the flowers we learned to pick. I'm going to start by picking some of these rose petals, not the full rose, because that's what one of the methods we're going to do involves. Remember guys, it's best to preserve freshly picked flowers. The reason I only picked the petals and left the rest of the flower is so that the bees could still harvest the nectar from it. For another one of our methods, I'm going to go ahead and pick some of this fleabane. See, we're going to want to pick it so that it still has some of the stem remaining. Something to remember is that for most of these methods, any flower will work. And if you want to, you can even use leaves. To demonstrate another method, I'm going to use buttercups as an example. But again, as a reminder, in case you forgot, buttercups are poisonous, so do not eat them. Now that we've filled our little bowl, we're going to go ahead and bring it back to our space. I also forgot to mention that for one of our methods, we will be using a book. I chose one of my favorite books of all time, Clan of the Cave Bear. For that method, it's also best to have a thicker kind of book. Now for the first method I'm going to show you, I'm going to use clovers. The good thing about this method is that it does not require any other materials to do it. We are going to begin by basically placing one clover stem over the other, and then we're going to tie a knot with it, basically like so, just like tying a shoe. And then you can just repeat the process for as many clovers as you'd like, or other flowers I suppose. Unlike some of the other methods we will be discussing, this one requires longer stems. And then when you have as many as you'd like to have on this little chain, you're going to go ahead and hang it from somewhere. Wherever the place that you choose to hang it from, it should be dry and well ventilated. That will also apply for most of these other methods. For this next method, I will be demonstrating with buttercups. You're going to want to start off by finding yourself a needle that has an opening that's not too small, but also not too big. I've chosen this one to try out. It's a bit smaller than I'd like, but with buttercups you need a bit of a smaller needle, so that's what I've got to work with. You're going to want to start off this method by basically smoothing out the bottom of the stem. You can use your nail, or you can even use the needle to do this. Now as you can see, the end of the buttercup stem looks a bit bruised and flattened out. This is the ideal way we want this to look. The next step will be then to try to take this flattened end and thread it through the needle. The reason why I don't quite like this method is because it takes some time to thread the needle. But as you can see here, I've threaded the needle with the end of this buttercup. For the next step of this process, we'll be using another buttercup and basically sewing the threaded buttercup into this new buttercup. This is a moment in which I would like to remind you guys that sometimes bugs do hide in flowers, so you gotta keep a lookout for these little guys. You can just go ahead and blow them out of the flowers or pick them up with your fingers. So I'm basically gonna try to get this and thread it through the center at sort of an angle. It'll make more sense once I actually get the needle through. So as you can see, I've skewered the buttercup with this needle at a certain angle through the center because that's its strongest point. Now as you can see, I've pulled the needle through the buttercup, and now the other end of the first buttercup has gone through. The next step is to very, very gently pull the original buttercup through the second buttercup. It should end up looking something like this. And then you can repeat the process as many times as you'd like. Now, as I had previously stated with the clovers, all you have to do with the buttercups is hang it in a dry, well-ventilated area. For this next method, we're going to go ahead and get out our baskets, and I'm going to use fleabane for this demonstration. This is actually one of my favorite methods. Basically, all you have to do is take a flower with a semi-long stem and just go ahead and thread it through one of the little holes created by the weaving of the basket. It's actually a rather simple process and very effective in my opinion. It is also the quickest process to do. And as you can see, all the fleabane has been lovingly placed into the holes of this basket, and I know you can't see the time in between that it takes for me to do these processes, but this only took me a few seconds to complete. And with the basket, you don't have to hang it anywhere, you just have to place it on the ground, preferably near or in front of a vent. For this next method, we're going to go ahead and grab our book and open it to a random page. You're going to also need some squares of paper towels or toilet paper. In this case, I'm using paper towels. Place a square of paper towel on each page for the book. We are then going to place our flowers in whatever way we wish. Bear in mind, when you flatten it by placing the books together, it will flatten it in whatever pose you place it in. Once you pose and flatten each of these flowers, there's no going back and unposing them, generally speaking. I'm also going to be using buttercups for this demonstration because some of them were picked too short. Now we're going to go ahead and close the book, press it down a little bit, and then we're going to put it underneath a heavy object. Whatever you have on hand is fine. For the book pressing method, you don't even have to put it in a well-ventilated area. Any place will do. We are now going to move on to our final method. I call this the flower line method. For the flower line method, we will be needing thread, a needle, preferably the smallest one you have, and some sort of device to cut the thread. In this case, I'm using my handy-dandy pocket knife. We are going to begin by threading the needle with the thread we chose. If needed, you can also use yarn or twine. Now that we have threaded our needle, we are going to go ahead and place the needle into whatever flower you chose. In this case, I chose rose petals. Bear in mind, wherever you choose to thread your needle through, it should be a strong point in the flower. In this case, I'm choosing the midsection of the rose petal. As you can see, I have successfully skewered the rose petal. You then gently pull whatever petal or flower you have chosen down the line a bit. Once you have successfully done that with your first flower or petal, you can repeat the process with other flowers or petals. Once you have successfully threaded as many petals or flowers as you please, you need to tie a knot at the end of the thread. As you can see, the knot does not have to be very big, at least depending on the type of flower you choose. We're then going to give the string a bit of length and cut it at the point in which you feel is best. Once you have cut it at the end that does not have a knot, you can go ahead and de-thread the needle. Then you can proceed to hang it wherever you please with the end that does not have a knot in a well-ventilated area that is also dry. You can even hang it on the handle of your basket if you'd like. And then once we have completed the process, we're going to go ahead and pack up all our stuff and gently put it all away because we don't want to leave a mess anywhere. That will be the end of the video. If I forgot any methods of preserving flowers, feel free to share.